I'm here at Mission Valero, better known as the Alamo, in San Antonio, Texas, at the beginning of my journey. That's right. A journey that will take us back 12,000 years and connect the incredible endangered heritage of the Coahuiltecan people and the Spanish missionaries that were united here by the sacred San Antonio River, a river whose power is said to influence the spirit of the people here today. If our mission is successful, we'll learn how the past bridges the present here in the southern plains of Texas and how a more sustainable future is being formed. Today, on Joy of the Journey.
I began my journey walking down the river that morning. A solitary boat passed by me and I could feel myself beginning to go back in time. I was traveling down an unknown road in San Antonio and there was no turning back now. I arrived at Bear Heritage Center and was welcomed by Juliet, the Heritage Center manager, and Ken, the director of the county parks. Juliet shared incredible heritage stories and showed me authentic artifacts like cannons. The center had the largest collection of historical books from the 1700s.
These are real books?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I hold one? Gosh, I was so close. I almost held the real old book.
Their archives held documents from the original Spanish settlers, the Canary Islanders, and even some of the people who are not often spoken about in history.
Yes.
An unknown part of the story, you know, a lot of times we don't hear a lot about the indigenous perspective, the African Americans, you know.
Right.
Ken shared with me his incredible passion and duty to be a steward of the heritage and culture that remains here in Bexar County. He impressed upon me how important it was for them to preserve and protect their natural resources. I was in awe of the efforts that they had been taking to sustain the river. Juliet recommended I visit St. Pedro Creek Culture Park to discover the secret power of the river. I left feeling grateful as I said goodbye to explore the next stop on my expedition. I drove through the bustling city streets to the San Pedro Creek Culture Park. This inspirational development is a city-wide collaborative project that honors the past through art installations. It also leverages modern engineering to restore the native ecosystem. I met up with a local culture expert, hoping she could bring me one step closer to discovering the secret power hidden in these waters.
Hi, my name is Carrie Brown and I am the Public Art Curator with the San Antonio River Authority.
The first thing I noticed in the park was a vibrant mural that told a 12,000-year-old story with some interesting characters.
I'm noticing a jaguar on one side and what seems to be a special bird on the other side. Now, where did those animals come from?
This work is by Adriana Garcia. She's a San Antonio artist. What she's referencing in those images is the story of the Payaya people, where the anhinga bird, a water bird, was startled off by the blue jaguar, and as it flew away, there were droplets that came down from its feathers, and that's what made the springs in the area, including San Pedro Springs, which feeds San Pedro Creek. So you see on the right, these Spanish explorers coming in, including Canary Islanders and some of the religious leaders. Those two groups are the main groups of people that kind of come together. She really wanted to see that influence of the cultures kind of coming together and mingling to create San Antonio, which is such a diverse city as it is today.
What I really love about this is it gives me this kind of feeling of like, even though groups of people can be from two different worlds, there could still be a center point or maybe a confluence, a place where they can all meet and find joy.
The spirit of San Antonio seems to bring people together from all walks of life. After the interview, Carrie showed me some other art installations around the park. I told her about my expedition and asked where I could discover more about the native Payaya people. She suggested I follow the creek where it meets the San Antonio River, Confluence Park. I met with the modern-day guardians of the San Antonio River and learned how their transformational actions were bridging the present to the past. First up to bat was Derek Bass, the general manager of the San Antonio River Authority.
What does the word confluence mean?
Confluence technically means where typically two bodies of water come together.
Okay.
But in the bigger picture is where things join. San Antonio River and San Pedro Creek come together. This area of the San Antonio River was restored by the Corps of Engineers in partnership with the San Antonio River Authority, Bexar County, and the City of San Antonio. Millions of dollars later, it is now what you see, an amazing restored ecosystem to turn what was a drainage ditch channel into its natural state.
Derek introduced me to Tommy, one of the engineers who was responsible for sustaining this pristine ecosystem.
My name is Tommy Mitchell, and I'm the manager of watershed and park operations here for the San Antonio River Authority. Water is one of our most important resources that we have, and to be able to sustain it, to be able to manage its water quality, to be able to ensure that what it's intended for, it continues to support in futures to come.
And so it is now turned into a hub for a number of environmental education opportunities. We bring school children out here to learn about the river, to learn about the habitat that surrounds them.
Educating them and getting them excited to be able to preserve and enjoy this beautiful ecosystem, this incredible sacred river, is something that's going to lead towards a better future here in San Antonio.
Absolutely, that's our goal.
There was something mysterious happening. Could this be a confluence of where humanity and nature met to form a better future? Tommy guided me to a very special place in the park that fueled my curiosity.
This is the Friendship Garden, but it's primarily a pollinator garden that supports monarch butterflies and their corridor and their travels from Canada to Mexico.
You're telling me that the monarch butterfly goes all the way from Canada, does a pit stop here in San Antonio, and they're like, man, I am famished, I am fatigued, I need a snack.
That's right.
And then one butterfly goes to the other butterfly and says, hey, you know what, I heard about this place, the International Friendship Park. They got good stuff to eat.
So animals came down here, they pollinated, they're coming, they're re-inspiring the vegetation to go back maybe to its original state.
Correct.
And so what does that mean for preservation and sustainability?
Water quality is one of our big concerns and things that we really manage and maintain. That was part of the project. The intention was really to improve the water quality. And with being able to have the native vegetation, the natural riparian habitat that you would see in an untouched stream really supports that type of water quality.
It always seemed to go back to the water, but where was the secret power of the Coahuiltecan people?
So the indigenous people of the Coahuiltecan, they believed that the river had a special power. Do you know anything about that?
San Antonio River originates at the Blue Hole, which is a natural spring. Centuries, it's been the home to a number of different people, native inhabitants, the Spanish when they came here.
As you know, this is connected as well to the 4 missions downstream, Mission Concepcion, San Jose, Mission San Juan, and Mission Espada at the very southern end of the project.
You know, water brings life.
Now, there's lots of things that you could do on the river.
Absolutely.
I've heard you can kayak, bike, cycle. Have you ever done any of those here?
All of the above.
You have?
I have.
Okay, cool.
And fishing.
A lot of times when you go into an area that has been restored or it's really high pristine ecology function, you almost a lot of times don't have the opportunity to necessarily interact with it or visit it.
That's really cool that people can come here and not only can they witness and support the actual preservation initiative, but they can participate in it.
Correct.
Dimarco.
Yeah?
I'm going to challenge you. Take advantage of the time while you're here and do the San Antonio River Eco-Triathlon.
What, like today, right now?
Right now.
All right, let's do it.
The sun blistered at over 100 degrees as I prepared to set off on my journey down the mission reach. I would run past 2 missions, hop on a kayak halfway through, and then bike from Acequia Park passing Mission San Juan, ending at Mission Espada. I passed Mission Concepcion on my right, standing proudly as the oldest unrestored stone church in America. Its faded frescoes and Spanish colonial architecture honored its relationship to 300 years of untold stories. 3 miles later, I nodded to Mission San Jose, the queen or reina of the missions, which was fully restored to its original design in the 1930s by the WPA. But there was more to the story at these UNESCO World Heritage Sites. These missions were not just buildings, they were communities of people that gathered together, that still gather today, a living legacy of the Spanish missionaries. But what about the people that lived here before them? Where were they today? As sudden as the questions came to me, I saw a familiar face by the side of the river. He embraced me with friendship. Ramon Vasquez is the representative of the Coahuiltecan community today in San Antonio. He invited me on a kayak for the second leg of the Eco-Triathlon with him. After placing the boats in the river and asking the wind for guidance, we pushed off into the unknown.
Smooth. Like butter. This is where we turn the film from a heritage documentary to a comedy.
Yes.
Halfway down the paddling trail, my eyes saw the water erupting ahead of me. Ramon took the lead.
Espera, espera. Woo! Get it!
But today was not the day for me to be outdone.
I'm coming up behind. I'm coming in hot. Woo! Come on. Oh, get it together, Kaya. Come on, Kaya. Get it together. All right. Going down this river like a pro. Not really. Terrible at it. I need to practice. I am not looking good on this kayak river trip right now. I hit that side and that side. I'm both sides of the chute.
So did they want us to walk back up to carry it back up?
Shoot.
I felt one with the river. I was honored to begin listening to Ramon's voice tell me the creation story of the Payaya.
In the beginning, before there was life in Yanaguana,
There was something about the way the sound of it kissed my ears. Yanaguana.
lived the Potapotane at the bottom of the Ojo, known today as the Blue Hole. A lone water bird, Awayamwan, was flying over hungry, looking for food. And he came across the Ojo, and he dove deep into the Ojo, where at the bottom of the Ojo, the Potapotana, the blue panther, gave him a fish to feed. And as Awayamwan shot out of the Ojo, he opened his wings, and the water, the droplets of water, fell from his wings onto the ground, piercing the earth, causing the water to flow from under the ground, creating the river that we know today as Wampupaku. In this land today that we know as Yanaguana, the land of the spirit waters. And that brought the fish and the food and all the four-legged and the winged and the two-legged to this area. And that was our beginnings here as the people of this earth, what we know today as the people of the earth.
Before I had time to ask any questions, we had arrived at the exit point. We pulled our kayaks out of the river and walked up the chute. Before departing, Ramon agreed to meet with me later to share more of his untold stories. I ran up the hill to Acequia Park, where Jessica from B-Cycle amicably lent me her bike for the last leg of the Eco-Triathlon. As I rode through the streets, I reflected on the experience so far. The sun shone on my back as I passed Mission San Juan Capistrano. I had seen 4 of the 5 missions, and the only one left was Mission Espada. After this transformational pilgrimage, I arrived noticing I was also on the Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail. Another clue, perhaps? I was met by two faces at the front of the chapel, one smiling in familiarity, the other guarding secrets from the past, here at Mission Espada. Ramon told me about his personal connection to the mission.
This is where I grew up at, right? Yeah. So this is where I learned how to ride. I learned how to drive. My father and my stepmother.
I learned that Ramon's family had been part of the original missions in Coahuila, Mexico.
Right, and her family are direct descendants of this mission. They still live in the area, as do many of the families from this mission.
Apparently, many of the descendants of the missions were still living in the neighborhood.
Their families have been going to church here since 1731, and they still go to church here. We have a service today.
And then the idea was clear to me that preservation was not just about the buildings, but also the families.
So what you're saying is this concept of like cultural heritage of like an artifact building, you know, it's more than just that. There's actually a living heritage.
Right, so these are not just, you know, this not just bricks and mortar. And that's our biggest struggle is, yes, let's preserve the walls and the churches and the grounds, but what about the families? The families that still live here, the families that built these walls and built these churches.
So when we're talking about descendants, we're not just talking about one group of people, one tribe. This is multiple groups of people.
Right. You know, when they arrived in San Antonio, yeah, there were 16 families. You hear about the Canary Islanders and things like that. You know, prior to that, there are thousands of people here, right? I was talking about in the river, we're like the migratory birds, right? We were migratory people. Our people were moving, you know, with the season. We know where the food is. You know, we know what the river is providing. We know when the bison season is. It's about harmony, working with the land, working with the elements. The Spaniards just didn't understand
The incredible power that connects people to place was almost forgotten in time.
And the work that we're doing is reversing extinction. We were shamed out of our culture, and we've been fighting and reclaiming our heritage, our God-given rights, right, that were given to us by our grandparents.
It made me feel very sad when Ramon told me about how he had felt, and how his people felt pain from this historical shame.
So we have to take ownership of who we are, because if we don't author our story, nobody's going to do it for us.
It was very hard to hear that, but at the same time, I felt inspired and empowered by what he was saying. He was telling his people to author their own stories, because this was the path to healing, to heal yourself. Ramon then explained to me that each one of these missions has a cemetery that houses the ancestors of the descendants of today.
There are over 100,000 descendants of these people still amongst us.
You know, we hear so often that there are no natives in Texas. In San Antonio in particular, my ancestors sacrificed so much, and they did so much so that I could be here, so that my children could be here. Our people no longer live inside mission walls, but we're still here.